I'd like to go ahead and address, as I said, this matter of this parenting essential, our second one, which is communication. And just a couple questions, some discussion time, and then I actually would like us to get a little bit interactive as we work down through our sheet. But the first is simply this: what is the very first thing that we think of when we talk about communication? Very first thing. Communication, what comes to mind? Yeah, exactly, talking. It is what I say. Very first thing we think about communication, we think about what I say. This is something in the capacity of what I am speaking. But in reality, if we're given a moment to really think through all the dynamics of communication, we would fill out much more than that, wouldn't we? I mean, is communication just words? Is that all we're talking about? Is just me speaking to you, or as you have two people come together? What else might we consider regarding the matter of communication as an essential part to communication? Yeah.
Fat, face, attitude.
Okay, fat. Face, attitude, tone. Very good. And I've got down here also tone. What I have down is tone. I do have mannerisms, which would go more maybe with the face. I don't have attitude down. I think we're looking at some other good options. I don't think what I have here is necessarily all conclusive. Yeah.
Listening?
Yeah, listening. Is listening part of communication? Well, unless you have, let's say you've had two people and they're in a process of communication and they're both speaking. Do we ever see that happen? Yeah. Where is like our society has, our culture has this kind of humorous way of depicting this. Who is usually the two people that are talking at the same time to each other? Who is that usually in our culture, entertainment, and so forth? Who's that usually that does that? Yeah, husband and wife. At what age? When they're quite elderly. And one's just talking and the other one starts to talk and they're talking on top of each other. Yeah, that can happen, but that can happen at any point in time. What else might be some other elements to communication?
The occasion.
Okay, the occasion.
Timing.
Timing.
Whether you're at a funeral.
Yeah. And there's a lot more on timing than just like the occasion, right? Is it always the right time to say something? No, not at all, right? In fact, one of the areas of maturity, we're not going to really touch on this, that we can have in the development of our communication with people is to actually take a moment and to assess what would be the best timing to communicate that. That little question right there, if we just paused for a moment and assessed that, that could be exceptionally valuable, not so much in satisfying ourselves, but in what? In accomplishing what we're looking to accomplish in communicating. Said at the wrong time, but even said the right content, the right way, or the right tone, could actually be taken the wrong way, right? When is the best timing to communicate to your spouse, either husbands or wives, because both cook, that there was too much pepper in the food? When's the best time to communicate that? What do you think? Is it at the dinner table?
When you're dead and gone.
Yeah, when you're dead and gone. That was great. Never. Yeah. You know what a good time is to do that? Okay. It's probably prior to that exact meal being made again. You might say, oh, I love that meal. Last time it was just a little bit heavy on the pepper, right? Or maybe never. You know, that's another good one.
Depends on who you're married to.
Yeah. But, you know, it's not to say that, yeah, maybe you do, or maybe it's salt and it's not actually good for you, and it might be good to bring that up another way, actually. So I have down here as well, content. That is actually very important as well. Now, if you look on your sheet, it says this: what are my primary communications, aspects of communication? at each stage of child development. And I have 3 different stages there. You can maybe develop more of that, but small children, adolescents, and adult children. Now, what I want you to do is you see 4 different categories: instruction and teaching, reproof and correction, counsel and guidance, listening and understanding. And I would like you to put number 1 next to instruction and teaching, number 2 next to reproof and correction, number 3 next to counsel and guidance, and number 4 next to listening and understanding. Now what I would like you to do, the space isn't very much, but in that little space just above each age category, I would like you to put only 3 of those in priority, from greatest priority to middle priority to third priority, and leave 1 of them out in respect to each of those age groups. You understand what I'm saying? So just above small children, you're going to put number 1, 2, 3, or 4, whichever one you think is the greatest priority in your communication with a small child. Then you're going to put the second most important thing with the small child, number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then your third item. You're going to leave 1 totally not there. All right? Just do that with small children. Move on to adolescence. There'll be 3 numbers above the word adolescence. Again, 1 will not be there. And above adult children, you will have 3 there as well, and you'll have 1 that is not there. Just take a minute. I'm going to give you about 60 seconds. This is not, I will not ask these to be collected. It's just a little bit of an exercise to really highlight maybe something in respect to what we have here. When you're done, you can look up this way. That's just like a college test, then I know. If you want to go back and change it, you are permitted. Okay, just take a few more moments here. Let's finish up. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and look at it. For small children, let's just ask it this way. Who put the number 1 thing for small children as number 1? How about number 2? Number 3? Number 4? Okay. Adolescents. Who put number 1 as the first one for adolescents? Number 2? Number 3? Number 4? Okay. And adult children. Let's try this again. Who put number 1 as first for adult children? Number 2? Number 3? Number 4? Okay, I have a question for you. And what are grandparents usually much better at doing with their grandchildren? Between those 4 different items, no matter what the age group of their grandchildren, what are grandparents usually much better at doing with their grandchildren? What do you think? What's that? None of them? Okay, 4, number 4, number 4. Anyone else?
But you didn't have spoiling, so.
Yeah, spoiling's not on there. That's not like, that's outside the communication bracket. Okay, now let me ask you a question. I agree with you. Okay, that number 4 is listening and understanding, and that grandparents are usually exceptional at doing that with their grandchildren. And here's the question: how does that affect the child's relationship with the grandparent? Okay. Let that be instructive to us. Okay, in respect to our own children. Right? They see their grandchildren. There is a bond, and that bond carries through their adolescence. It goes into their adulthood, if their parents continue and they're still alive, into their mid-adulthood. It continues to be an exceptionally strong bond because that aspect of relationship, listening and understanding, is really, they're just given more time to do that. Now, part of that is why they don't feel what is their responsibility. Maybe reproof, correction, and so forth. Now, grandparents do take upon themselves instruction and teaching and counsel and guidance. What is the weight? Because, and I would propose this, because number 4 is so strong in a grandparent to grandchild relationship, What is the weight of the grandparents' counsel and guidance? Is it pretty strong? Yeah, it's pretty strong. I think that's instructive for us. It's just to show the value within relationship of what we're talking about. Now let's talk about communication. Communication is the building block of relationships. You could say a building block. Obviously, there are other aspects to it, but communication is essential. The point of this study is really twofold. One is to underscore the priority of communication above many other priorities. Above many other. I'm not saying above all other, I'm just saying above many other. Communication is exceptionally important. And then the second point of this study is just to touch on how to communicate. We're going to actually do a little bit more than just touching on it. We're going to just touch and remind ourselves about some aspects of communication. But why am I saying the first? The priority of communication above many other priorities. Well, the other day, I mentioned to you that I was with one of our missionaries. He is probably close to 80 years old. I don't remember how many grandchildren they have, quite a few. He is a missionary that is in an administrative role. So he also is ministering to a lot of other younger missionaries and to their families. He ministers to a lot of pastors. He knows a lot of pastors and missionaries that have had significant struggle with a child or with some of their children. I'm not saying necessarily in their relationship, but with a child going away from the Lord or something of that nature. I wasn't trying to prepare him for the question at all. But he said what I really believe is an essential as well. And it's this, that one thing that you do not want to sacrifice is your communication with your child. You want to keep the communication open. Even if your child is picking a path contrary to the will of God, contrary to your directives, your counsel, your wishes, your will, communication is critical to keep that open. Why is that? What happens when we cut off our communication with our children when something goes wrong? What happens when on our side we cut it off? What happens when we cut off our communication with our children? Yeah, there's a rift. What happens? The relationship. It should. I know it's a real simple question. I'm really not looking for a complex answer. That the relationship is ruptured, right? Because the two are related. Sometimes the parent might think, well, they know that I love them, right? They're just picking another path, but they're cutting off communication. It ruptures relationship. Now, let's go ahead and ask some other questions. What do communication and relationship have in common? Well, I think it's pretty obvious, but they both require at least two people. Okay. In other words, there is a choice on both sides regarding the investment in communication, if they can understand the effect upon the relationship. They are also, communication and relationship, as what was just noted in the answer to my question, are mutually impacting. Let me put it this way. A rupture in relationship breaks what? Communication, and right communication can be helpful to restore what? A relationship. So how critical is it that even if there is the choice of another path, we do still have good communication? It's absolutely critical. I don't know if you've experienced that before. I recall times with understanding different situations where a couple had a struggle with one of their children, and the child was choosing a path as an adult contrary to their wishes and to their will, very grievous to the parents, but the parents kept communication. And if you were to have talked with those parents, they would have been weighed down by the choices of their children. But understanding these principles, they rejoiced that they still had good communication with their wayward child. Why? These very facts. Because where there is good communication, there is at least the possibility of restoration of relationship, and not just with them, right? There's the opportunity of incredible influence even in that person, that child's relationship with the Lord. Now, here's another question. What is accomplished by communication with our children? What is accomplished with that? We talked some about relationship, but let's actually get down to what is actually taking place. Let's not just think the relationship is bettered or whatever. What does take place when we have good communication in the relationship with our children? Yes, so we touch the hearts of our children, imparting wisdom, advice, counsel, instruction, and so forth. Okay. What else?
We know where they're at.
Okay,
Where they're coming from.
excellent. There's a word for that. We understand our children. How important is it in a relationship to understand the other person? Why do the grandchildren have such a great relationship with their grandparents? Because their grandparents have an understanding of them. How about this, though? Through communication, because it's mutual, our own hearts are open to our children. Therefore, they what? They understand us. That is also very critical. What starts to happen when a child does not understand the heart, the drive, the desires, the intentions of a parent? Yeah, they don't feel loved. They can start to question things. They can ascribe wrong intention, right? But when there's good communication, it helps. It doesn't prevent it. It helps to protect them from misunderstanding our hearts. Yeah, that all goes, it's ascribing something that is not there, right? Absolutely. Now, let's look at our text in Ephesians 4:15 and 16. Now, this text is not talking about parent-child relationships. This text is not a text about communication. This is a text about the church, all right? But within the context of the church, it starts back up in verse 8 and following down through verse 11 with the gifts that Jesus Christ has given to the body. Then it tells why he has given these gifts in verse 12, for the perfecting or the equipping of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying or the building up of the body of Christ. And then it really, in verse 13 and 14, talks about that maturity. But that maturity is going to go towards, verse 15, a way in which the body ministers to itself. So there's going to be a maturity in the body, so they're not blown about by wrong doctrine, but there's going to be more than that. We know that maturity in a church, in a local church, is not just doctrinal. It is also what? Relational. Okay? So it's going to talk about that. And what happens with the body? Well, look at verse 15. But speaking the truth in love, okay, that is related to the fact that within the body, the thing that we do between us in our relationship that's critical is communication. It's communication. Really related is just one idea, speaking the truth, and then this manner of it or what's attached to it in love. I mean, you know what it's like for somebody to communicate to you a certain form or content that is truth but abrasive or harsh. And you know what it is when it's communicated in a way that you really understand. Not only would they maybe say, I'm saying this because I love you, you really sense that in every manner of all the aspects of communication we just talked about. We like to watch some of these, I'm going to put guilt upon us. We like to watch some of these cooking shows, competition cooking shows. And you do have to use a filter with it sometimes, the language. So we put a filter on it. We watch some of these. Well, recently, they brought in a guest to one of these programs that is not the normal judge. And it was a special series with this individual. We've listened to the other regular judges who they rotate through a lot. And some of them are a little bit harder than others. Some of them, all of them are really right on the money in trying to give a critique. And they're not afraid to speak the truth. But even from those that are just a little bit harder, more strict, you do have this sense. This guest they had come on as a judge, I was uncomfortable watching the program. It was that harsh. It was that hard. And I felt bad, not just for the cooks and the critique against them. I felt bad for the other judges. I almost felt like, as I saw their faces, that they were like, taken back by this other judge. It actually created a conflict as this went on between that judge and the final cook that went against him. And he tried to relate that this was just his heart, and I'm not trying to doubt that. But I'm trying to say that there's a lot about not only the content, but the manner. So the truth is communicated in love, and it affects. There's some of those judges, man, I would love for them to critique my cooking. I don't cook very much, It's just, it's so welcomed. It's so welcomed what they say. So there's a manner, speaking the truth in love, but there's this immediate effect of such communication in the text. It says this in verse 16. From whom, that's from Christ, the whole body fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint supplieth. That's a tough statement. I'm going to give it to you out of the ESV translation. Joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped. In other words, everyone is doing their part in the functioning that they are gifted in. And remember, the primary way it's taking place has something to do with communication. Communication and love. But then you have the outcome of the bond at the end of verse 16, unto the building up of itself, or the building of itself in love, of being built up in love. Right? Isn't that a beautiful picture of really what should take place in any relationship? And it's the key to that is communication. Key to that is communication. That there's communication going back and forth, and in the end, because it's truth and it's in love, in the end, there is this bond coming together. The joints are bound to one another by what they are doing in love. And there's greater love being built up in that. I think that's a tremendous picture of that. Now, let's go down to subpoint A. Remember, this is point number 2. We did point number 1 last week. Point number 2 is communication. Subpoint A is this. What kind of communication builds up relationship, trust, and assures love? And now, this is where we're going to touch a little bit just on our communication. And I do want to just touch on it. We've touched on this before in other sessions, but I want to touch on it again out of James 3. Now, we've looked at James 3, so I'm going to work down through this somewhat quickly, but we're going to use it as a launch point. It says here in verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Now, the overarching first one is what? It is pure. Now, pure is basically something that is unstained. It's morally pure. And we could really go on quite a bit in this. Actually, the text breaks it down maybe a little bit later, but I want to just treat it under this point. What kind of communication has some sort of moral fault with it? What kind of communication has a moral fault? Is morally wrong? What do you think? Yeah. Selfish. Excellent. That's my point number 3. Very good. My point number 3 under that is self-centered or selfish. Actually, there's a little bit of difference between selfish and self-centered, but yes, that's it. What else? What other communication is just morally wrong? It's just wrong. Any idea? What's that? Yeah, judgmental. Excellent. And, critiquing and things, that's going to come under my second point, though I don't know if it's fully underneath that, but it really comes underneath a certain type of communication. Yeah, excellent. I'm going to give you that point in just a second. What's that? Revengeful? Yeah, revengeful communication. These would kind of maybe fall revengeful, maybe under the most general understanding, it's evil. That's the very first basic idea here. Evil communication which tears down, destructive words, criticizing I have down here, which would be judgmental. And what was the one up here that you had? What was yours you said? Uh-oh. Back it up. Revengeful. Yes, vengeful. Good. Does anybody know my second one? Under wrong kind of, this is very popular within our culture. So you have evil, you're going to have self-centered or selfish at the end. My second category is this. And you could, what's that? Gossiping. Gossiping, I'll put that under evil, but yeah. This category, you can actually type in what is this kind of communication. It'll give you a breakdown, I think, of about 8 to 10 different kind of communications. And you can click on each one and it will open up a definition, maybe even an example, something like that, right on your Google page. I was quite amazed by that. I was just looking up some different types. I had an idea where I wanted to go. But it's this, manipulative communication. Manipulative communication. Do you know what manipulative communication is? How about this? Do you understand the idea of guilt tripping? Giving somebody a guilt trip. What is that? You're putting guilt upon them so that you get what you want, right? You get your desire. That is selfish, right? Self-centered. You may not be familiar with some of these others, but these are very common. Very common. I don't even particularly like some of these titles because it's used too frequently and I think it's not used properly. But there's a certain type of manipulative communication that basically creates another reality. Yeah, it's called gaslighting. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's the idea where you might say to somebody, you might create by saying, well, I never said really this. I didn't intend this and this. You're just taking it this way and this way. And really, you're adjusting reality to that person. When the reality is that they're reacting against you because you did mean this and this. Not these things over here you're saying later. Okay? Yeah, but you're twisting it around against them. It's not always making it their fault. But it's changing, it's adjusting reality, and often it does make it their fault. It is manipulative. Manipulative is going to seek to try to do something for yourself. There is one called love bombing. That's another big name in communication. I don't know if you've ever had this experience before. I have. It was not pleasant, but it was clear as crystal. And it was somebody who reacted strongly towards me in a wrong way, really, it could legitimately be, very wrong type of communication towards me. Later on, instead of correcting what was said to me, came just with a lot of praise and kindness and good words. But I was already at a distance. I was, what are you trying to do? You just ruptured our relationship to some degree by the way you did communicate. Now you're trying to correct it, not by dealing with your wrong communication, but by doing what? Bombing me with love. And it's very manipulative, right? What would have been appropriate and what is appropriate is always to go back and deal with what we have done wrong. And, all of us might be in some way guilty of some of these things. I don't know of that one, but here we have the matter of flattery, the silent treatment, isolation. Isolation is your friends don't really understand you like I do, etc. And these are just some examples. Some of it's secular as far as its source, but much of it's very accurate as far as wrong communication. It's not pure. What's pure is speaking the truth in love. That's pure. It doesn't mean it's not demanding on you to speak the truth right now. We talked about timing, right? But there's the idea of communicating with love. The second is peaceable. What brings tranquility to a situation in the heart of your child and to the center of your relationship? Wisdom from above is going to do that. It's going to bring tranquility to your relationship, to the heart of your child. It's going to be gentle, it's fair, it's equitable, it's mild. Do our children know us as strict and harsh in areas where there is room for individualism, personal viewpoint, or difference of opinion? Do they know us as strict and harsh in areas where they're good, godly, Christ-loving people, even right within their sphere of relationships, which would have some differences on that? If we come down as strict and harsh, but they see the evidence of other godly believers that might be a little bit different from us, what do you think that's going to do to our children in respect to us? Right? It's going to start to cause alienation. They're going to see the witness, the testimony, the evidence of people who do hold something a little bit different than us, that love Christ, that love His Word, that honor Him. And if we're over here super harsh and strict with no concession for differing opinions, even potentially in our own children, this could really cause issues. Doesn't mean we couldn't have our own convictions, but let us present them appropriately. Easy to be entreated. It's reasonable. It's able to be reasoned with. This really denotes able to be reasoned with doesn't speak of necessarily compromise. It does speak of a two-way communication, two-way conversation. And obviously there are some issues where that cannot be, but there is, in this case, conversation with mutual deference and respect, full of mercy and good fruits. After our child is done talking with us, not only by what we say, but also by the spirit in which we said it, is there a sense of mercy and just an overall sense of pleasantness from our communication with them? Do you know what it's like to speak with people like that? Where you just feel mercy and pleasantness? The other day, we were out in the community and we knocked or we were at a door, and the lady opened the door, elderly lady, and she came out to talk with us, and she was just joyful lady, and we told her what we were doing. We're just putting on door hangers for the church with gospel literature on it, and she gave a clear, forthright declaration about her faith in Jesus Christ as her Savior. And she goes to another church in the community, moved here I don't know how long ago, but she moved here from another state. And as we were talking with her, she was just so kind. She brought us to the back. She showed us some things for her backyard. It was a really beautiful area. She was an artist. She brought us into her home to see some of the artwork and even gave us one of her pieces of art. It was beautiful, beautiful. And we were talking about something, and she gave just a word of, she gave a communication about what we were talking about. And I can tell you this, it was filled afterwards. There was this sense in our hearts, I believe, of mercy and pleasantness. It was the fruit afterwards. You left with that. It's like, yes, we left with a piece of artwork, but we left with fruit in our hands. And it was like it was tangible. Do you know what that's like? I want to be that kind of person. I got a long ways to go, but I want to be a person that when somebody's done communicating with me, they go away with this sense of mercy and pleasantness. Do our children go away with that? Listen to this. We're going to take a little bit of a diversion on this. Proverbs 16:24. Pleasant words are as an honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Pleasant words, morally and aesthetically good and beautiful. Morally and aesthetically. The words have an aesthetic to them. They're good and beautiful. What are the effects of that? Well, it says they're like honeycomb, sweet to the soul. That means it's easy, it's nice, it's enjoyable to receive, and healing to the heart. This, I would say, what seen to me as really just a godly believer, elderly godly believer, there were words that were enjoyable to receive, and they were healing to the heart. It was just a delight to communicate with her. What about this passage? Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. A soft answer is something that's conciliatory. It's an answer that restores good temper and reasonableness. Can you think of any example in the scripture of somebody who came and with a soft answer turned away wrath? Yeah. Yeah, that's one of them. It's right down here. Abigail pacifying David, 1 Samuel 25, 23 to 31. I don't expect anyone knows this one, but it's Gideon with the men of Ephraim. They came very upset to Gideon, and after he talked with them, it says this, then their anger was abated toward him. And this is what a soft answer does. But what do grievous words do? Well, they're grievous are in emotion. They're harsh both in content and manner. But in content, their purpose or their drive or their effect is they cause pain. They cause pain to somebody. Have you ever intended to communicate truth to somebody and maybe you didn't really check what you were going to say, or you didn't check your own spirit, and you said something without really contemplating exactly what you're going to say or how you're going to say it, and you saw that it hurt. And I don't know what your feeling is, but it's like, you just did not mean to do that, but you just did. How can you take it back in? And just rethink all of that and come at the right time with the right tone, with the right words, and just come away from that really ministering something that is conciliatory to their hearts. It's without partiality. Back in the text in James, your child, they should know where you stand. We need to know where they stand, and they need to have a certainty about what we've communicated. There needs to be a certainty about that. And then without hypocrisy, no secondary purposes, no play acting, and this goes back to what we dealt with already. I said there was a little bit of overlap, and here's where it's at. No manipulation. Manipulation or self-centeredness, hiding behind words, is hypocrisy. Now, what is the importance then? That's the first part. Subpoint B, what is the importance of listening in communication? And we could talk about this. We could give statistics. I just want to look at a verse and bring our time to a close with a couple questions. Proverbs 18:13. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame to him. What does it mean to answer a matter before he hears it? Well, here's the idea. It means to interject my thought before I hear your thoughts. It's where the grandparent is interjecting their own thoughts into the conversation before there is the communication of the thoughts of the child or grandchild. Okay, that is answering a matter before it's heard. What is another word for that process where we interject our thoughts before we hear their thoughts? What's another word for that? What? Okay. You cut them off? Yeah, cut them off. What is another word? That's right. That's exactly right. That would just be a synonym for what I have here. Interruption, right? That's interruption. So that's what this is talking about, is interruption in communication. He heareth, it means to hear usually the extended meaning, to attend closely to it, to pay careful attention to. That's what it has the idea of, to really give yourself with extension to the meaning, to attend closely to it, and to pay careful attention to it. What's another word for that? Listening. So there's two things here. They're in contrast to one another. Interruption and listening. Those are different. What's the best way to improve, and I think we have this question, what's the best way to improve our skill of listening to others, particularly of our children? What do you think? Anyone? How can we improve, right? I mean, does anybody here, I don't think anybody here thinks that they couldn't improve in this area. I think all of us could. I know I could. Absolutely. I know I could. I know the failures in this to a part. Sometimes you don't even perceive your failures. What is the best way to improve our skill of listening to others? Okay, be patient. Yeah? Don't ridicule. Okay. To be quiet. Good. Anyone else?
Wait till they pause
Yeah, wait till they pause. Okay.
in the conversation.
Yeah, taking turns. Good. Good. Mine's really simple. Okay, what is the best way to improve our skill of listening to others? Purposefully work at it. Right? Purposefully work at it. In other words, it's not something like by accident. We, just like in other areas of the virtues of Christ, what does it say if we look over at 2 Peter chapter 1 and adding those virtues to our faith? How are we supposed to add them to our faith? With passivity? No. With diligence, the text says. With diligence. Be diligent to add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, to your knowledge temperance, and so forth. Be diligent to do it. And in this way, I think it's appropriate. Yes, in the grace of God. Yes, with prayer. Yes, with much study of the Word of God. Yes, with outside helps. How can I be a better communicator? I read a tremendous article. I don't know if it was written by somebody as a believer. Tremendous insight on developing the capacity to listen. Tremendous insight in it. Made in the image of God, I trust that as there is truth there, that it could be a blessing to us. And we know the text, James 1:19, there's some question as to the context and exactly what this is, but the principles are true. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. We already talked about some communication killers like interruption. What would be another communication killer besides interruption? What would kill communication with our children? What's that? Loud? Oh yeah. Harshness? That's going to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what else? I lacked creativity on my answer. My way or no way? Okay, yeah. Yes. What's that? A lack of self-control? Absolutely. In the New Testament, sophroneo, self-control, absolute virtue necessary. Anyone else? How about this? A delight to talk about one's own opinions. Have you ever talked with somebody like that? What's your relationship with them if that's what they like to do all the time? A fool Proverbs 18:2, a fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. A little bit difficult. Let me read the ESV on that. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. That's clear. That's clear. If you're communicating, if communication is so key to relationship, and you're communicating with somebody that has that kind of spirit, and they just delight in giving their own opinion, you are a receiver, but there is no building of relationship. You're just a sounding board for them.
Their opinion is the right opinion and yours.
Yeah. Or, my way or the highway type of thing, too. Yeah, that will cut things off quickly. And that goes back to that whole matter of being easy to be entreated and so forth that we considered earlier. Now, practical applications, and we'll end with this. For an adult child, when do I need to say something about their wrong behavior?
Well, I would
Because this is a huge issue. This is a huge issue.
if they ask for your opinion, that is a great time to give it, or if you see it is hurting them in some way.
Yeah, those are both very good. Very, very insightful. I appreciate that. If they ask your opinion or if it's hurting them. Okay. Might be hurting them all the time.
Well, I mean, if it,
No, I'm not saying something against your point. I'm just trying to add to it for further consideration. But what else? What do some parents feel they need to do? Yeah, they need to speak about the wrong behavior until the child changes. In other words, there's like this insistence on it. What's that going to do to your adult child? Every time they think of you, or they are going to meet up with you for breakfast at McDonald's or for a family gathering or something, what do they know you're going to be doing over in the corner? You're going to have a big drum, and you're going to sit there, and you're going to hit it. Every time they see you, you're hitting that drum. Who would like to be around a person like that? You know? Boom. And they're like, that child's almost the only person that hears it in the whole group. Just boom, 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 boom. And it's not just in words we say, right? But if we hold resentment, they interpret that resentment back to that drum, right? If we're holding something out on them, it's all tied back to that drum. And it is a drum beat, and it will rupture, it will break that relationship. So, let me ask a question. Does your child know your position? Does your child know your position? Right? Okay. When they think of you or they see you, do you think that they think you changed your position? Just because you're silent, do you think that they think, oh, finally, Mom, finally, Dad, they've changed their view of what I'm doing? Not at all. Not at all. That'd be very unusual for them to think that. Typically, they know what you believe. And really, to keep communication in that relationship, there is not a necessity to repeat before an adult child the area of their waywardness or the disagreement with them, because it will rupture that relationship. They will not want to see you. And there is something that you need to weigh on that. What makes it difficult for a godly Christian parent not to say something? What makes it difficult for that parent not to say something? What's that? Yeah, your love and concern for them, but if you know what it might do if you do say something, what overcomes to actually where you say something, even though you love them? And you don't want to cause a rupture, but you just feel like you got to say something. Besides love and concern, that's a great one.
You see,
Yeah, you see that?
the light coming in the tunnel, you got to warn them.
Yeah, the warning. How about this? Your own conscience. Your own conscience is the thing that you're fighting against. You're fighting against your conscience. You don't feel right not saying something. You almost feel a sense that you're doing something wrong before God by not saying something. And we need to understand there is, for an adult child, if there is a sure knowledge of what is happening, it doesn't mean you need to compromise in certain areas. I give you an illustration, but I don't know exactly how to do that properly. But something with a child who is away from the Lord and away from the parents' instruction. Well, they just couldn't bring that particular element of their life into the home. They could come and visit the parents, but they couldn't bring that element into the home to visit their parents as an adult child. So, so there wouldn't be compromise on the parents' part. But they didn't sit there all the time during Thanksgiving and Christmas and just keep talking about, how long are you going to be doing this? So that's not, I've talked enough about that. What are some obstacles to establishing good communication with our children? I'm going to give us 3. Getting stuck on our authority or our position rather than on our relationship with our children. Second is our own pride. Are we willing to admit our wrongs or our failures, or even potentially that the wisdom and the righteousness of our children is commendable? And because there are times when a parent has done something wrong and the child has taken a right path. Are we willing to deal with that properly, or is our pride getting in the way? And thirdly, our unwillingness to grow or a negligence to pursue growth in our communication, like we have talked about in respect to listening. So I just trust and hope that this is a help to us. I would love to give you a chance to ask questions, but we are at the hour. But if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I know some of my applications and things, they're extended beyond, and I hope I try to be clear when it's extended beyond a thus saith the Lord. I don't want you to be bound in your conscience by my words. My words don't have authority or weight at all. God's word has authority and weight on us as individuals before him. And so I trust you understand that, but I hope that this has been a help. And let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we do thank you for